Home Show Garden Pros, helping to turn your thumb green.
That is right. Home Show Garden Pros is here to help with the old black thumb, making it green. Happy you're here. This is our live midweek version, video version, where we talk gardening, and that's what we do all the time, even on the radio. Home Show Garden Pros is a live radio show every single Saturday, and also this weekly, 30-minute show that happens here on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching, wherever you're enjoying from. What we do is we dish out great gardening info. So we collected these experts from all over the city. We call them our co-op members. So that's good folks, garden expert, knowledge specialists from Enchanted Forest and Enchanted Garden down in Richmond, Texas. You also got the awesome people from Nelson's Nursery and Water Gardens. Anita's one who comes out most of the time. Up in Kingwood, there's Bourne Southern Gardens and Kingwood Garden Center. And I see Michael watching right now. Michael, thanks for tuning in. That's cool. He's our guy that comes on. Man, he knows so much. It's awesome. Also, you got, Plants for All Seasons up there, 249, just past Louetta. Beautiful spot. All of them have great plants, great soil selections, and just knowledgeable staff. Incredible places. So that's the radio show version. Every week we have someone on to help out with information. Here in the video version, we like to go with kind of like a nonprofits, garden clubs. Sometimes we get master gardeners on here. We got a special treat today because we don't have a master gardener. We have the guy who guides the master gardener from Fort Bend County. Ladies and gentlemen, Boone Holladay. Hey, Boone, how's it going?
Howdy, Danny. I'm glad to be with you today.
Thanks a lot. Tell us what you got going on out there in Fort Bend, what you're doing these days.
How much time do we have?
Take your time.
A lot of stuff going on here in Fort Bend County, particularly because of Winter Storm Uri.
Right.
Our phones have been ringing like crazy, and it looks like you got some questions that are probably relevant to that. Not only getting past the storm, but simultaneously, this has created a frenzy in the nurseries. It's hard to find a parking place in any of our independent retail nurseries in the county. So that's a good problem for them. But, we recommend that people wear elbow pads and a helmet while they are touring the garden centers for your own safety. Of course.
Yes, yeah, because if it's hard to get a parking spot, then it's real hard to get heirloom tomatoes or citrus trees, right? That's when the claws come out.
The struggle is real.
Yeah,
the struggle is real. But further than that, we do have a couple virtual programs that we're working on this year, along with the Fort Bend County Master Gardeners. And one of them is a series on home food production. That's fruits, vegetables, herbs, etc., that we call Grow Your Own. Nice. And this is a 6-class series of programs that starts this Saturday and will be spaced out throughout the calendar. These are virtual programs, but we'll be doing some recorded taping from community gardens and large home gardens from across the county. So get a sneak peek of some cool sites to help get some ideas on how to get those gardens growing. So information on that program can be found at our extension website, which is fortbend.agrilife.org, or on the Fort Bend County Master Gardener website, which is fbmg.org. And then kind of aligned with that, we've got another series just on home landscape maintenance, just for the weekend warriors out there that we call Landscape Success. And this one is a partner program with the Fort Bend County Library System. Nice. So if you go to Fort Bend Libraries, click on classes and events, you'll see the first class is going to be starting next Tuesday, which the first class starts with soil. And we work up from soil and talk about turf, trees, shrubs, ground covers, annuals, perennials, etc. throughout the year.
That is awesome. That's so cool. And the cool thing about the virtual classes like that is I can go out into my garden, take the class, and actually practice some of the stuff that you talk about. So
Indeed.
It's a great way to get involved. And you guys are doing a great job doing education. And, man, Fort Bend's so cool because did I read right that it's the most diverse county in America?
Yeah, and that continually ticks up as far as the amount of diversity. I just looked at our demographic update today, and it's getting more and more diverse every time I see that. So we love it. We've got a very diverse group of volunteers and people that we work with here in the county, so it's a whole lot of fun.
Well, that's so cool too, because you're getting such access to unique vegetable plants and people that know how to grow those interesting plants from all over the world. So that's so cool.
Yep.
And you don't have to do the crackdown if somebody brings in some illegal eggplant. Yeah, that's somebody else's job. So that's nice. Have there been much of that? Like people bringing in, exotic fruits and vegetables and trying to grow them?
Yeah, we get a little bit of that every once in a while, and we help the municipalities and the groups that are kind of dealing with that prepare a script for people, just
Nice.
to basically say this is go to the APHIS website, read up on it, and you'll understand why those regulations are in place.
Exactly. That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of people are always looking for the best new thing, but a lot of times, it's the thing that we just haven't used enough of. I mean, somebody was asking me just today what my favorite. Oh man, what's the one with the blue, but it turns pink if the soil is more basic?
Hydrangea.
Hydrangea. Yeah, they're asking me what's my favorite hydrangea, and I've planted a lot of them, and I still like the Nico Blue. I still like the kind of old hydrangea. So sometimes the best one is the one that we've used the most. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
So Boone, what we do on this show is we've got some questions that we're going to go through. Also, people are invited to put questions in the comment section. Wherever you're watching, we will try to get to those. We got multiple screens going, and we're checking questions all the time. So please, we got 2 horticulturalists here and 2 different kind of experience sets and people that love answering questions. So we are here to do that. So we're going to start with these questions that we've called from our Facebook page and from our HomeShowGardenPros.com website. We have a button there called Ask a Pro. You click that button and you send me an email. Also on Facebook, you can put questions in there, both places too. You can use pictures, which do help a lot. So we're going to start with the questions. You ready, Boone?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. It's from Carol. She says, I had my young citrus trees covered during the winter storm. However, the branches are dry. I did scrape the bark and saw some green on the orange tree, but I heard something on your show about it. They start to grow from the bottom. This is not good, and the fruit will not taste right. If this is the case, what should I do? The same is happening with my pomegranate tree. So really 2 topics there, but maybe address grafts, I guess, for Carol here.
Very good. Well, it looks like there's probably 2 different things potentially going on here. So one thing we know is that pomegranate trees grow readily from softwood cuttings. So if you buy a pomegranate, chances are it's the same plant from top to bottom. It's not a grafted tree. So what's happened is just extreme freeze damage. So it means the top part of the canopy is dead or compromised so bad that it's trying to grow back from basal sprouts. And so in that case, you would just cut it off several inches up above where the basal sprouts are coming. And then just with TLC and time, that really grow back in here in a couple of years to start producing fruit. It's the other case with citrus is that most of our citrus varieties are grafted onto a common rootstock that exudes some characteristic that we want out of the plant. For us, it's cold hardiness, salt tolerance, disease resistance, etc. And that happens to be normally a trifoliate orange or even a dwarfing trifoliate, which is typically called flying dragon is the variety. So in that case, we want to have to do a little bit of homework to try to figure out, are those sprouts coming in from above the graft or below the graft?
So this would be one of those really good moments where it's great to have a picture along with it. So the graft is often a diagonal, kind of, it looks like a scar maybe around the base of the trunk, very close to the ground. And so just low down on the trunk maybe isn't as helpful as near above the graft or below the graft. Is that what you're saying, Boone?
Right. Well, a lot of times the trifoliate orange tends to be more vigorous than the Scion, which is the variety you have on top. So you tend to have this bulging effect. So there'll be an obvious difference where the base is bulged and then you have a more narrow line coming out of that. Also, what you'll see in there on that line is sometimes a difference in color above and below, or a difference in texture in the bark above or below. So if you get down there, most of the time it's pretty obvious that there is a graft there. And you'll know that if the sprouts are coming above that, You probably have your variety of that you wanted, whether it was a satsuma, orange, lemon, lime, etc., versus they're coming below it. The other thing that you can look for, and is pretty common, is that the name of this plant is Pancerus trifoliata, or we call trifoliate orange. This is a native orange tree that grows in pastures wild here in southeast Texas. But it has its name because it has three little leaflets. And all the other varieties of citrus produce a larger dark green single elliptic leaf.
Right.
Like this. It's big and green, one single leaf. Sometimes there's like a little basal bulge, but it's just one leaf. So if you see the sprouts coming up in either one, there's three little leaflets on there together, or this thing has some wicked green thorns on it, then that's pretty clear that those sprouts that you're seeing are the rootstock coming up. And so you can keep those things cut back and just cross your fingers that eventually you'll see some green up and some new bud growth from up above the graft.
Okay, gotcha. I do have some good growth on my N33 navel, so it's maybe a foot above the graft. So I'm pretty happy about that. I thought that tree was toast. So, all right, here we go on to next question number 2. But that does sound like good news on the pomegranate, though, so that's good. All right, this one's from Lauren. Lauren says, help, my lawn guy said he put weed killer, and now my lawn has these yellow patches all over. What do I do? Or what should I do? From Lauren. So what do you think?
Well, it's kind of a vague question. And again, without pictures of it, this one's hard to tell. It could be that it is impacting broadleaf winter weeds, and that's the yellowing. But it sounds like from the question, I think she knows that the damage is in the grass, the yellowing in the turf grass, and this can happen. And reading the product label is always this may be a situation that comes down to environmental impacts, improper application, not looking at the temperature range of the application, etc. So there may be a little burn off. I mean, these selective herbicides that people use for any type of horticulture or agricultural use are selective, which means that they are going to impact the non-target species in some form or another. But if applied by the label directions, you should be able to minimize those impacts. So there is a potential of some turf yellowing. Ways to get around that would be appropriate follow-up with watering, and maybe even an application of a good quality top dress of compost and organic fertilizer, just to try to nurture the roots back to health and try to help the plant get past some unintentional herbicide toxicity issues.
And Boone, I did see this picture, and it was a little bit just like you're describing them. Now, most of the yellowing was the leaves actually dying, but what was most alarming is that it was all right under a tree. So it was all right under a tree that she has in her lawn, and so I was like, I don't want to put down these hardcore herbicides under a tree. So is that something people need to be careful of too, or is that all just on the label again?
Yeah, and this says a landscaper applied this, so it's this person should be trained enough to make the correct decisions in those situations. But a lot of time for homeowners, they kind of go into those situations blind-eyed, and overuse of broadleaf herbicides within the root zone of existing broadleaf trees and shrubs is really a no-no. So one, I try to stray people away from weed and feed combination products in the area of the active drip zone of trees and shrubs, just as a general rule. If all you have is this green expanse of San Augustine grass, then not perfectly fine. But when you get into those tree areas, you got to be very careful, because those products are potentially going to be absorbed by those trees and cause some chronic toxicity. What I tend to recommend in those situations, if you just have a small amount of weed pressure, just a gentle spot treat on those dense areas of weeds, or to look at some type of approved pre-emergent weed killer that's not going to impact existing trees and shrubs.
That's great. That's a great thought there. And I did love what you say about just, the the best way to kind of heal the space, and it probably would help prevent future weeds, is doing a compost top dressing and really focus on building that soil up. And so we're kind of all about that here at Home Show Garden Pro. So love hearing that advice coming from you. That's awesome stuff. All right, on to question number 3. You ready?
Let's go.
Okay, all right. Hey, you're doing a great job. Very thorough. I love it. All right, this is from Isha. Isha says, how frequently do you water your citrus, lemon, limes, already fruiting, May to July? So she's really worried about this late spring through midsummer, how frequent water for the citrus. Mm-hmm. And she's very polite. She says, thank you.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
We tend to recommend during the active growing season for citrus is 1 inch of moisture a week.
Okay.
But if we compare that side by side with our annual rainfall charts, that's not applying a whole lot of water, to be honest with you. I'm listening right outside, and we're probably getting 2 or 3 inches of rain this afternoon.
Okay.
And so that means I don't need to water those plants for probably 2 weeks. It's just waiting for the soil to dry up naturally. So don't just set your irrigation system automatically to apply 1 inch a week. If you do that, that's fine. But understand how the simplicity of those systems is just to be able to go in there and turn that system from auto or on to the off position. It's pretty easy to do. And just leave the systems off until we get back to a droughty situation, and then start reapplying some moisture. But roughly about 1 inch of moisture into the root zone per week will keep the plants growing sufficiently and helping to develop those fruit. That is the over application of water, and the fact that as those fruit begin to color up, if we apply too much water, then that's really going to impact the quality of those fruit. They'll swell up too fast. Sometimes we'll have skin bursting on fruit, and it does greatly affect the bricks, the sugar content within those fruit. So you hear a lot of people that say, I have great citrus, but when I open it up, it just tastes like water. Well, that's because it had too much water.
Yeah, not enough time to build those complex molecules.
Sugar molecules.
I've been to the ET data site on the Texas AgriLife website, and it's awesome. I'm a huge fan of that. Actually tracking, the evapotranspiration data. And so what you're talking about is, when it rains, you get some water, and then you don't need to water anymore. But is that y'all's tool, or whose tool is that?
Yeah, that's through our tool. And I don't have the URL at hand here. I'm glad that you mentioned that. You could probably do a follow-up in your comments there. But it's the ET network. And so our School of Irrigation hosts that. And so they collect weather data from weather stations state. And it basically tells you how much rain you've gotten within the last 24-hour, week, month periods to help you guide those decisions. There's also a tool that's available, and I think it's just called Water My Lawn.
Nice.
I'm trying
that's fun. Very simple, very straightforward. My lawn.
Yeah, it's actually Water My Yard is actually what it's called.
Yeah, I guess that's nice.
watermyyard.org, and this is also a tool that's hosted by the School of Irrigation, and it is about as simple. I mean, people, when they think about irrigation, sometimes they get a little nervous about the tech behind it. But you sign in here, you put in your zip code, your address, and it basically says you need a water or you don't need a water.
Right. Wow.
So it comes down to that. If you don't want to think about ET or evapotranspiration and have to go through the coefficients and transpiration rates and all that, then you can go there and they basically say, yeah, your plants probably need some water or you don't need to worry about it. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to worry about, phone home or anything else like that. Elliot, from this one. That was from an old movie some of you kids haven't seen. It's called E.T. Okay, on to question number 4. Okay, all right, good. And here we go. This is from Ashley. Ashley, she's a rebel. Okay. And she has a question for herself at first. Who's sneaky in growing food in the front yard after the HOA said you can't have a veggie garden out front I'm guessing that it's Ashley. That's the answer to that one. Sorry, I jumped the gun on that one, Boone, but I think I got that one. Anyway, so far it's just ground cherries, boysenberries, raspberries, rosemary, and sunflowers. Who knows what I'll plant out front in the fall? But her question is, what are some other plants I can mix in for the summer? Seems like she's talking about edible plants that will pass as landscape plants. So maybe that's a question. And then maybe we can do another one like, what are some common landscape plants that have edible parts, like pineapple guava or dwarf Yopon holly, stuff like that.
Well, she is very dangerous in this situation.
I know,
here. We have a lot of communities, neighborhoods in Fort Bend County that are under the dominion of strict HOA guidelines and restrictions, and so there's a fine line here. And you know, there was some legislation passed probably 4 years ago at the state level that suggested that a HOA cannot prohibit ornamental plants or edible plants being installed into the front view landscape on homes.
Oh, wow.
With the caveat of some considerations being made or met by the HOA. So so it basically boils down to if you submit a plan and you're doing this in a way that is aesthetically pleasing within the landscape and within the basic guidelines or expectations of the neighborhood, then you're good. But if you're just out there and you've taken all their grass up and you've got teepees with beans growing all over them, that probably doesn't qualify for most of those situations. So, what I tend to tell people is that there's hundreds of types and varieties of fruits and vegetables that could fit into this. And so I'm not a Pentium processor as far as pulling up particulars, but the concept for me is kind of thinking what wouldn't work. Okay. And so some plants that we know, tomatoes, for instance, particularly indeterminate tomatoes that are going to vine, they're going to get big and leggy, and then later in the season, they're going to be stricken with disease and insect pressure. And so you get brown, yellow leaves on them. They're big, they're lanky, they're leggy. So stuff like tomato, vining squash, zucchinis, pumpkins, those plants, they may not be the one that wants to go in the front yard for your neighbors. They may be put into the backyard so that they can go through that whole process for you and not cause any grief in the neighborhood. Other thing is thinking about the basic fundamentals and principles of landscape design. And that a lot of these herbs and vegetables and fruits have landscape qualities, have color, have shape, have texture. So if you can build those plants into the design and make them work fundamentally with what you've got, you may get Yard of the Month, and the HOA would not even know that you were out there eating your landscape.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe choose not to be quite as blatant about it. But there's so many. There are evergreen shrubs. There's flowering, beautiful plant. I mean, my plum tree is just gorgeous once a year because it's covered with blooms. And so, it's in the backyard, but it could easily be in the front yard. And people would ask me, oh, what is that? So there's so many great options. And then, you got pineapple guava, Mexican marigolds. These are commonly used landscape plants that make a really tasty food. I mean, those pineapple guava, you can eat the flowers, which is really fun. They're kind of sweet too. So they're a great flower to put on your fancy cakes and stuff. I know you people are making fancy cakes out there.
Yeah, and seasonality with some of this stuff plays into as well as, all the colored chards are fantastic for the cool season garden. But as you transfer into the warm season, sages, basils, there's so many varieties of basil that have beautiful color and beautiful floral sets to them that, again, nobody would ever know that this was an intentional edible plant in your design and would look as or probably more beautiful than your neighbor's landscapes.
And one thing that is nice to do if you are really eager to do vegetables in your front is to integrate flowers, is to integrate some annual flowers from time to time just to give it that beauty, give it that presence. Because, this is part of the neighborhood. Your front yard, yes, it's your space, but you're also it's your neighborly space as well. And so adding that beauty is a big thing. And hey, if you choose the right ones, you're talking pollinators. So that's going to be helpful if you do have some new citrus or other shrubby, yummy plants. So great thoughts there. And, you know, I like that. It's kind of like, don't forget landscape design. Let's not forget that this is a beautiful space. Great word there, Boone. Really nice stuff. So just off the cuff, though, what are some of your favorite kind of fertilizer tips and, soil improving tips?
Well, if you've had a whole lot of master gardeners on here, I'm sure that it's been the common denominator that we talk about soil sampling and soil analysis. It's always a top for us, beyond recommending conventional, inorganic, organic, etc. Is let's look at what are the needs in the soil to have a balanced nutritional load. So soil sampling is the most important for me, and then from there, depending on how high a level of one particular nutrient is in imbalance, you can decide if you need to bring in some inorganic fertilizer options to those up or down substantially, or if they're fairly balanced, of looking at some organic options there just to kind of keep you floating within range. So good tool is our soil and water testing lab website, which is the URL for that is soiltesting.tamu.edu. And if you scroll down to the bottom, it says resources, and it shows you how to conduct a sample, how to analyze a sample. It goes through all the fertilizer calculators so you can see how much of each actual ingredient or nutrient you need to be applying to that. And the forms, how to download the forms and send that information off to the laboratory. There's also a little check mark you can put on your application that says send results to your county extension agent, and they'll share that information with us. So if you need a call, myself or one of our master gardener hotline volunteers interpret the results from your analysis, and then just trying to balance the nutrients in the soil. And then once that's correct, then hypothetically we should be able to grow anything.
Nice. I like that. I was thinking a little bit earlier today just about organic matter in the soil, and there's a lot of talk about what percentage is your organic matter and how to increase that percentage and how impactful that is on roots and water collection, water saving and water collection. So I was thinking about humic acid and how wonderful it is as an application. And so that's why we dug up this awesome video with Anita Nelson that we're going to kind of show right now. One of the things we do here is lift up one of our awesome experts that comes on. So let's learn a little bit about humic acids. A lot of times you run across chlorotic plants, either in the pot or in your garden. That just means yellowing. Yellowing leaves is all that means. Anita brought us a few examples and a great way to heal that. What'd you bring us here?
Well, first of all, I want to say a great way to heal it organically.
Oh, yes,
and
of
gently.
Yeah.
This is an eggplant here, and it looks kind of healthy here, but these leaves are starting to turn yellow, and they have holes in them.
Yeah, and then this being the fourth or fifth leaf, that definitely should not be turning yellow yet. So my guess is it's just because it's in this little pot that's a problem. But if you're seeing things like that, things like this kind of fading of the leaf, that means that you're lacking nutrients or the roots aren't able to grow. A great way to kind of solve both problems is humates. So humates are just carbon basically and other minerals. And they really activate the life in the soil around those roots, and it'll start the roots to grow very quickly. So why'd you bring this pintus in?
Because this is what color this leaf should be.
Oh, a little contrast.
And, they should be that deep, rich green. But when I look at this, when I see these, and I see that the centers are still kind of healthy looking, I feel like when you do add some humates to them, they'll recover pretty quickly.
Yeah, your best thing with potted plants is to get them in the ground. So these are still viable to buy at a nursery if you see them like that, but you want to get them home, get them in the ground quick, and feed them up with some great humates.
Well, how quickly would they green up?
You'd probably see it in a couple days.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, for more, go to HomeShowGardenPros.com. There it is. Great way to improve the health of your plants with humic acid. Thanks, Anita. Great thoughts there. Boone, you got any thoughts about our video we showed?
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree with it completely. Especially starting with a young plant. Um, that's where you kind of make and break a plant is early
Mm,
on. If you start off with a plant that's yellow and stressed, a lot of times it's never going to get back to the point where it gives you the desired result. So yeah, foliar applications, soil applications of organic matter and a proper amount of fertilizer in the soil
hmm
to start it off right. A lot of people are halfway through the growing season and they've got stunted yellow plants. And sometimes my response to that is pull them up and let's start over with some healthy plants to get the soil right, and let's try again. Versus trying
Absolutely.
to kind of nurse those some of those plants beyond the point of what diminishing returns maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. You keep adding stuff to an unhealthy plant that's kind of not going to make it. I feel like I see it a lot with peppers, and those were most of the peppers she had. But I feel like peppers a lot of times are the ones that, man, if you can't start them good, they're just never going to get good. So
Yeah, that's right.
I like that. Hey, you mentioned bricks earlier, and I love it when I hear people mention that kind of calibration, that measuring stick. But will you tell the listeners and watchers a little bit more about what bricks is?
Well, this is just a spectrum review of light throughout the particles of the plant, which is going to help identify the sugar content within the cells of those plants. And so, one thing that people that grow fruit, this is very important for them,
Mm,
is to be able to test these fruit early on. Grape growers, or people that are making wine, bricks or fruit sugar percentage or sugar content is crucial for that grape to be able to translate into high quality wine. And so it's a way that we can test that while the fruit are still on the plant to help give us an idea if we need to tweak some of our growing practices a little bit to get ready to harvest that plant at the peak of freshness and sweetness.
that there you go. That was that was perfect. Awesome. So appreciate you being here. You've given us some great tools, great advice, soil testing. I'm really checking that rainwater data, learning how and when to not overwater your lawn. That's what I'm gonna start saying. Not how much to water, but how much not to water. Because man, people they kill their plants so much just by overwatering. So
Yeah, it's
you're doing a great job out there in Fort Bend County. And tell us a little bit again about the classes you guys have coming up.
Yep, grow your own. First class in that series is this Saturday, bmg.org, and that's the website homepage for the fantastic Fort Bend County Master Gardeners. You can register for that event or the full series on the website, and it's going to be starting off talking about um, planting the fruit or the home food garden, starting from the soil there, and then next Tuesday we have the launch of Landscape Success with the Fort Bend County Libraries. Just go to the Fort Bend Libraries website and then you scroll through the calendar. You'll find that event. And I think we're going to have 8 classes in that series that will be spaced out throughout the year. But we're here all week long. We answer a lot of questions. We have Fort Bend County Master Gardeners that man a hotline. And so any garden questions, bring them our direction. First step there is fortbend.agrilife.org, and that's our county extension website. That's a great place to start from, and then you can bounce around from there.
That is awesome. Well, Boone, thanks for taking the time today, and man, hope that grow your own fills up. That sounds like an incredible class. So y'all have a great time. We do. Oba has an event coming up too with Dr. Maya Sheetreat, and she's just talking about how soil leads to better food, good soil, good food, and we feel healthier. She'll be talking a little bit about building your immunity systems and physical resilience. So she's an awesome presenter. She wrote the book called The Dirt Cure, which is an awesome book. If you are on Audible, actually, it's available. So pretty cool stuff there. So that was our show for the day. Home Show Garden Pros. Tune in on Saturday, 6:10 a.m. The sports radio 6:10, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the show. So a lot of fun there. And we'll be having Joey Linderman from Enchanted Gardens with us, full 2 hours. So hope to hear you then. Hey, great job. Thank you.
Right on, dude.
Hey, we got a list of about 10 people.